That's what Boston, we can all agree there. Boston needs to win the NBA Finals. But anyway, we're going to move on here and we are going to stay within the confines of the Eastern Conference Finals because we got to look to the Pacers right now and what's next for them, being that they fell short. And obviously, there's a lot of optimism as it should be. Zay, I'll let you begin again. How should we feel about the Pacers? What's next?
Well, they're a very young team, a very young group. They have a lot of opportunities to grow. The only thing is now is how do they choose to grow? They have some people that they have to sign back, like Siakam, Nemhard, who number 2 right there was the one that was hooping this entire series. I believe he had like 18 a game. He was doing a bunch of just a great just showing of a game. They have to see if Rick Carlisle, do they bring him back or do they bring in a younger coach to help facilitate their youth movement for this team? Tyrese Halliburton, is he really the head of the snake, or do they need to look at a different direction to find another number 1 option to complement with him so he could really thrive? Is Siakam that option? So I think the Pacers are in a great place. They didn't expect, nobody expected them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals this early in their youth movement, but they have a lot of growth and they have a lot of opportunity to continue to grow based upon this upcoming offseason draft class, so on and so forth. For me, I would like for them to get another rebounder, somebody that's as physical and as agile as a Miles Turner, who's able to sit in the paint, but also go out there in the perimeter, defend. I think they need like a Malik Monk type of player. They need someone who's an outstanding scorer, and maybe that's the player that they get, Malik Monk himself. So I think that's something that they can look at in this offseason and see if that's something they could do.
Zach, the mic is you.
Yeah, I think Indiana had a great season considering they went from a team that didn't even make the play-in tournament last year to the conference finals. They have a lot of intriguing young pieces: Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Miles Turner. And we forget about Benedict Mathurin, who is a former lottery pick. He didn't even play in these playoffs. I think he's a legitimate player with a big-time future. But guys, I got to say, I've been watching sports long enough to know when your team has an unexpected playoff run like this, it's never as easy as, oh, the future's bright, we'll be back. Nothing's a guarantee. Just ask the 2021 Atlanta Hawks, which honestly, this Pacers team reminds me a lot of. They beat Philadelphia in Game 7. That in that series, like, not a lot of people gave them a chance, and they found a way to win. And it's honestly similar to the series the Pacers just played against the Knicks. Like, most people didn't think Indiana had a chance in that series either, and they were able to surprise some people and win it. Unfortunately, though, Atlanta, that team never really stood a chance in the conference final that year against Milwaukee. And then the next thing you know, they went from a team that everyone said had a bright future and just made the conference finals to a team that hasn't been out of the first round since. Like, the Hawks haven't won a playoff series since that conference finals. And I think that is more likely to happen to this Pacers team than them getting to another Eastern Conference Finals or, God forbid, winning a championship. Now, notice, Zay mentioned this too, like, one of the players I didn't bring up just now when I listed all their core pieces was Pascal Siakam, who they gave up multiple first-round picks to get this guy during the season, but they still haven't agreed to terms yet on a long-term deal. And all I'll say is they better be able to re-sign him, because if they are not, that could be a trade that really holds their franchise back for a long time. And they don't get to this conference finals without him. If they let him walk for nothing, I think that completely takes away all the momentum you've built in these playoffs and throws it completely out the window. And I think if you're Indiana, you have to be super frustrated because you outplayed Boston in 3 of these 4 games. This series should be tied at 2. And we should be getting ready for a Game 5 right now. But we're not. So I think Indiana blew a massive opportunity. And when that happens, it's never a guarantee that you're just automatically going to get back.
Yeah, I think right now the Pacers should be looking at bolstering the coaching unit here. I think when you look at the series in particular, I believe it was Game 3, Al Horford had made 7 out of 12 3-pointers left wide open in the corner consistently. I mean, back-to-back possessions where I believe it was off a Tatum behind the back pass. He was left wide open in the corner for open 3, back-to-back. No adjustments being made. Rick Carlisle, I give him credit for getting this team deep in the playoffs, over exceeding expectations, being a year or 2 ahead of schedule, but at the same time, coaching malpractice, not calling a timeout, in Game 1 where you could have inbound the ball to set up your play, right? There was another I think it was game 3 as well, where he didn't call a timeout as well when he should have called the timeout. So I think they need to get some experience, some veteranship on that coaching staff. I also think when you look at this team in general, I like what they got going on. I like the game that Pascal Siakam has that complements what Tyrese Halliburton does, because Siakam is more inside the arc. That's where he does most of his work. Halliburton is behind the arc. So I think they complement each other pretty well. I like Miles Turner. I like his versatility. I just think sometimes that he uses his body a little bit too much, like he's at the Rucker Park, trucking dudes and all that, getting fouls. I think he, could do better with that, be a little bit more disciplined there. I like TJ McConnell's game, the spark that he gives them off the bench, his pestiness on defense. I also like Nimhard. He came out there and he went hard. I really thought he subbed in well for Tyrese Halliburton. I didn't really think they missed the beat without him, as funny as they may sound, because Nimhard plays so well. I like their depth. I like what they're building. I like how Obi Toppin fits on that roster. I think he's a better fit there than he was on the Knicks. I think they got a good future, but I think bolstering the coaching staff needs to be the priority.
I'll just ask you guys the same question. Like, what's more likely? This team gets back to an Eastern Conference Finals, or this team doesn't win a playoff series for the next few years and it's broken up? Because I'll go with the latter. I'll go with option B.
I mean, it's tough because I think we can ask ourselves which team, not name the Celtics and the Bucks that we all always put at the end, to win. What team in the Eastern Conference has the brightest future, right? Because then you talk about the Knicks. Do we prioritize the present? Do we make a trade? Do we run it back? Then the Pacers. A lot of people thought we should have beat the Pacers. Do you think they have the brightest future? And if not, who do you think? And then maybe that answers your question.
Yeah, I'll say no. I think Orlando has a better future, especially if they could make a move or two in free agency. I think Paolo Banchero is going to be a big-time player in this league. I was so impressed with him and what he did in these playoffs. I know they lost in the first round to Cleveland, but I think he's the real deal, and I think he's going to be a legitimate star, top 10 player in this league. Coaching is not a concern with Orlando compared to Indiana. I'm a big fan of Jamal Mosley, what he did with that defense. Franz Wagner, they're going to lock him up long-term. I'm a big fan of Anthony Black. I think he's a good young player, and I think a move could be coming for Orlando. I know Zay's brought this name up, but I think Malik Monk would be perfect there.
Yeah, they need some shooting.
Exactly. So bring him in. I think Orlando has a brighter future. I would put the Knicks ahead of Indiana. I think the Knicks beat Indiana rather easily if they're healthy in that series. Not trying to make excuses. It's just facts. I'm never counting out Miami. We'll see what happens with Jimmy Butler. So yeah, I just, this Pacers team reminds me so much of the Hawks.
What about the Kings? Do they remind you more of the Kings or the Hawks? Because the Kings is kind of like another team that they took the league by storm last year, and they kind of like, they didn't even make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and plus those two teams are kind of intertwined, right? Because they made the big trade, Halliburton for Sabonis. Yeah, that's a good comparison too. We thought the Kings' future was so bright after they pushed the Warriors to 7 and they didn't make the playoffs. So I like that comparison too. I've been watching sports long enough to know that when you have a run like this that comes out of nowhere, it's never a guarantee that you're going to get back. Zay, I hate to bring this up, but look at the 2006 Mets, man. The team that was one run away from going to the World Series, and we thought that young core was going to be legit, and they never even got back to the playoffs. So it's really hard to win in this league. And this Pacers team has to re-sign Siakam, because if they don't, they're in major trouble.
Zay, you could bring us on, man. Are they going to be like the Kings and the Hawks, or are they going to be a standalone team in history making it back to the Eastern Conference Finals?
I think it might be close to the Hawks and the Kings off the strength that they have to re-sign those veteran guys. They have to re-sign TJ McConnell. They have to re-sign Pascal Siakam. Nemhard's even a free agent, so you have to re-sign him as well. So there's a lot of guys they have to re-sign. There's not enough money to go around to bolster your roster. That this roster wasn't good enough to run it back. And I think that's something they need to focus on. So I think this is an organization that has a lot of decisions to make. And in terms of, do they try to push forward with the youth movement or bring back the veterans in hopes that they could run it back to go to a potential NBA Finals with this roster? I don't think this roster is as completed as people believe. So I think maybe they take a few years off to recoup some assets, hopefully continue developing Tyrese and other guys, so that they can get back to an Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals potentially. I think that's their best move.
All right. We're going to go to halftime here. And when we come back, we are going to make a brief stop in the NFL. We got some boxing later on as well. Make sure you keep it locked. This is 99 Pod.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.